Welcome to our deep dive into range. You've given me some really thought-provoking excerpts from David Epstein's book, Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. And I'm really excited to dig into this, especially, in a world that just seems to constantly be pushing us towards specialization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a timely topic. We kind of have this idea ingrained in us that we need to pick our lane early on and stick to it and, to really be successful. But Epstein really challenges that.
Yeah, right away he kind of tackles this idea, I guess you'd call it the Tiger Woods phenomenon, where,
Okay.
Tiger obviously had a very specific path to greatness,
Yeah.
but, Epstein's point is that may not be the norm.
And he really highlights this Roger Federer path, which is really fascinating. The idea that exploring a range of experiences can actually be really beneficial before honing in on that specific focus. And he gives some compelling examples of that too, from the world of sports athletes like Tom Brady, Esther Ledecka, who've kind of defied this specialization trend and they've
Yeah.
excelled in multiple disciplines. It makes you wonder if having that broader base actually contributed to their later success.
Yeah, and that's what I found so intriguing about the book. Like, it's like this idea of jack of all trades, master of none is getting a serious makeover.
Yeah.
Then he introduces this concept of wicked environments, right? Like
Yeah.
situations that are complex and unpredictable. And that's where he says generalists really have an advantage. But I have to admit, I'm curious to hear more about what those environments might look like in the real world. What are some examples that come to mind for you?
Oh, there's so many. Think about firefighters who are battling a skyscraper fire, right? Their years of experience with house fires might not translate so well to this new situation. They might be more prone to errors because they've traded that adaptability for that narrow expertise.
That makes perfect sense. They've become so good at one thing that knowledge doesn't transfer as easily. So how do generalists, how do they navigate these wicked environments more effectively? What's their secret weapon?
Well, Epstein really argues that generalists are better at connecting the dots. They can transfer knowledge from one domain to another, and that ultimately makes them better at solving those kinds of problems.
This leads to one of my favorite concepts in the book, analogical thinking, finding solutions by drawing connections to seemingly unrelated fields. The story about the scientists who solve a complex radiation problem by using an analogy from a fortress. I mean, that just completely changed my perspective on problem solving. It's like unlocking a secret mental toolbox.
Oh, absolutely. It highlights this idea that drawing from those diverse experiences can lead to these aha moments, right? That maybe specialists miss. And, he even gives the example of Kepler. Kepler was this renowned astrophysicist, and he used an analogy of a boatman steering a rudder to explain how planets move in those elliptical orbits.
And, speaking of these aha moments, Epstein dives into learning and how desirable difficulties can actually make learning more effective. But honestly, the idea that making learning harder is beneficial, I mean, that feels a little counterintuitive to me. Could
Hmm.
you elaborate on this concept and what it means for us as learners?
Yeah, so think about it this way. Imagine you're learning a new language. If you rely on those translations, versus struggling to recall words and phrases from memory, it actually strengthens those neural connections in your brain. So Epstein talks about techniques like spaced repetition and interleaving, which is where you're kind of mixing different subjects up, as ways to introduce those desirable difficulties into our learning.
So it's about embracing the struggle rather than always seeking the easiest path to knowledge. I find that incredibly empowering, especially in a world that often prizes speed and efficiency over depth. I mean, it makes you wonder if our pursuit of easy learning might actually be hindering our progress.
And this ties in nicely with another concept from the book, lateral thinking with withered technology.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So Gunpei Yokoi, the creator of the Game Boy, he intentionally used older, more readily available technology to develop his products. He didn't go for the cutting edge, right?
Right.
He focused on creative applications of familiar technology.
Almost like constraint fosters innovation.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a fascinating parallel. It's like whether we're talking about learning or invention, sometimes limitations can push us to be more creative. This idea of resourcefulness, thinking outside the box, it seems particularly relevant in a world, I don't know, obsessed with the next big thing,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a reminder that innovation can come from the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. And, Yokoi, he saw potential where others just saw, obsolescence. He focused on gameplay and user experience rather than just being blinded by this shiny new technology. It's a powerful reminder that we don't always need the most advanced tools to create something amazing.
So I want to step back for a second. We've seen how a range of experience can be beneficial in unpredictable situations, in problem solving, even learning. But I'm curious about the implications for decision making. Does Epstein address that?
Oh, he does. Yeah, he dives into this 20-year study of expert predictions by Philip Tetlock, and it really challenges our assumptions that specialists are always the best forecasters. It turns out experts can be really overconfident. They rely too heavily on their narrow knowledge, whereas generalists, what they call fox-like thinkers, those who consider a wider range of information, actually tend to be more accurate.
Wow, that's quite a revelation. I mean, it kind of implies that being open to different viewpoints, being willing to update our beliefs based on new information, that's key to making better decisions. I'm curious to hear more about these fox-like thinkers and how we can cultivate that kind of intellectual flexibility. What stood out to you about their approach?
Well, one of the things that stood out to me was that they were really intellectually humble. They didn't claim to have all the answers. They were always seeking new insights, even from outside their area of expertise. And they were really comfortable with uncertainty. They didn't feel the need to cling to that single perspective, that rigid perspective.
It sounds like they were masters of adaptation, always kind of evolving their understanding of the world. And that's such a powerful reminder, especially in an age of, information overload, where we're constantly bombarded with information, and it's easy to fall into those traps of confirmation bias and echo chambers. So from what we've talked about so far, it seems like having this range of experience can be beneficial in a surprising number of ways. It's not just about being a jack of all trades. It's about cultivating this mindset that embraces exploration and adaptability, continuous learning.
Absolutely. And we're just scratching the surface of what Epstein explores in this book, Range. He delves into so many fascinating examples from so many different fields, and he really highlights the power of generalists in this increasingly complex and unpredictable world.
This is already making me rethink how I approach learning and problem solving. I'm eager to delve deeper into the specific examples and strategies that Epstein offers. Um, what are some of the key takeaways that really stood out to you from the excerpts you shared?
One that really resonated with me is this concept of dropping your familiar tools. It's this idea that clinging to those ingrained habits and assumptions can hinder our ability to adapt to those unexpected challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an important point, especially when we consider just the rapid pace of change in today's world. I mean, it seems counterintuitive, but maybe letting go of what we think we know is sometimes the key to making progress.
Exactly, yeah. And, he gives some powerful examples of that, like the Challenger space shuttle disaster,
Yeah.
where clinging to those familiar procedures ultimately had tragic consequences. Or he talks about firefighters who actually perished because they refused to abandon their heavy equipment in the face of a fast-moving wildfire.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those examples are sobering reminders that sometimes that attachment to what's familiar can actually blind us to the best course of action.
Right.
It's about recognizing that flexibility and adaptability, those are just as valuable as expertise, especially when the rules are constantly changing.
Precisely. It's about having that courage to unlearn, to adapt, and to really embrace these new ways of thinking and acting when the situation demands it.
It's like that saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
Sometimes we need to expand our toolbox or even be willing to put down the tools that we're most comfortable with.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where having that range of experience really comes in. It gives us that wider array of tools to choose from and that flexibility to adapt to those different situations.
I'm already starting to see, how this applies to my own life and work. It makes me wonder if there have been times when I was, too focused on my familiar tools and maybe missed opportunities to think outside the box.
That's such a great question to reflect on. And that's what's so powerful about this book, Range. It challenges us to question those assumptions, to embrace those new perspectives, and to see the value in that breadth of experience, even in a world that often prizes specialization.
This conversation is making me rethink my whole approach to learning and problem solving. It seems like Range is filled with even more thought-provoking ideas and examples that can help us navigate this, this increasingly complex world that we live in. I'm eager to delve deeper into those. What else have you uncovered in the excerpts that you shared?
Well, there's this one really fascinating story about Jill Viles, a part-time substitute teacher who made this surprising medical discovery.
Oh, wow. Okay. That sounds intriguing.
It is. So she has this rare genetic condition called Emery-Dreifuss muscular dystrophy.
Okay.
And she actually diagnosed her own family with the condition after reading medical journals and recognizing the symptoms.
Wow. So she's like a medical detective.
Exactly. She used her personal experience and the knowledge she gleaned from her reading to solve this mystery that had actually baffled doctors.
That's incredible.
And it doesn't even stop there. So Jill became convinced that she also had another rare condition called lipodystrophy, which prevents the body from storing fat.
Oh, okay. Wow. So how did she even figure that out?
Well, she compared her own physique to that of Priscilla Loebschleep, an Olympic hurdler.
That's amazing. I mean, what an incredible example of connecting these seemingly unrelated areas.
Right. She saw like these striking similarities in their body types, and she even contacted Loebschleep and encouraged her to get genetic testing. And, while it turned out that Loebschleep didn't have lepidystrophy, Jill's story highlights the power of, observation, analogical thinking, and being able to connect the dots across different domains.
Yeah. It's incredible how someone, outside of the medical field could make such a significant contribution just by applying their knowledge and experiences in this unique way. It really reinforces the idea that expertise isn't limited to those with formal credentials.
Exactly. Sometimes those closest to a problem can offer insights that specialists might miss. So Jill's story is a testament to the value of personal experience, curiosity, and a willingness to challenge that conventional wisdom.
This is making me think about how valuable, diverse perspectives can be, even when, tackling really specialized problems.
Totally.
We touched on this with those Sox-like thinkers
Mhm.
and their approach to predictions, but this takes it to a whole other level.
It's about recognizing that everyone has like a unique set of experiences and knowledge to contribute. And those insights can be really valuable when we're like, trying to solve complex problems.
This reminds me of another concept from the book, lateral thinking with withered technology, coined by Gunpei Yokoi,
Yes.
the creator of the Game Boy.
Yeah.
He championed, finding innovative uses for older, readily available technology.
Yeah. Instead of always chasing that cutting edge, he believed that real innovation came from finding those clever solutions.
He sounds like a true innovator, like a tech MacGyver.
Exactly. Think about like the Game & Watch, for instance. These handheld games used readily available technology and focused on just creating this really fun experience. This approach proved to be incredibly successful, and it really paved the way for the iconic Game Boy.
It's a fantastic reminder that innovation can come from like looking back as much as looking forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes the best solutions are found by thinking outside the box and leveraging those existing resources in creative ways.
This concept of withered technology is making me reconsider my own like assumptions about progress. It's not always about like, the newest, shiniest object. It's about finding creative solutions to problems, regardless of the tools at our disposal.
Exactly. It's about resourcefulness, it's about adaptability, and it's about a willingness to experiment with what we have.
This has been such an insightful conversation already. I mean, we've explored how a range of experiences can enhance adaptability, problem solving, even decision making. I'm excited to continue our deep dive into range and see what other valuable lessons we can uncover together. What else have you discovered in these excerpts you've shared?
Well, there's a fascinating section about, the backgrounds of successful innovators. Researchers like Robert Root Bernstein have discovered that many groundbreaking inventions actually came from people who had a very diverse knowledge and experience.
That makes sense. It's like they weren't necessarily the leading expert in one specific field, but they could kind of connect the dots across disciplines.
Exactly. Like the invention of the MRI, right? It was a collaborative effort between physicists and chemists and engineers and medical doctors, a true convergence of those disciplines. And it wasn't just teams either. Individual polymaths have made huge contributions to scientific and technological progress.
It's like having this mental Swiss Army knife, equipped to tackle all sorts of challenges. It's not just about, depth of knowledge, but it's about the ability to see those connections and apply those insights in different contexts.
Exactly. Yeah. Think about like Leonardo da Vinci, a true Renaissance man,
Mhm.
or, Benjamin Franklin, a statesman, scientist, inventor, writer, publisher. Their diverse experiences gave them these unique perspectives, that led to these groundbreaking discoveries.
And their stories really, they challenge this notion that we have to specialize really early on to achieve greatness. It's almost like having that breadth of knowledge allows them to see things that others might miss.
And Epstein highlights the contributions of, like, outsiders too, right? So those coming from outside of a particular field who can bring a fresh perspective. He mentions Nicholas Appert, a Parisian confectioner who revolutionized food preservation with his invention of canning.
Wow, so someone with no scientific background, no engineering background, found this solution that experts had missed.
Exactly. He was this creative problem solver who saw an opportunity that everyone else overlooked. And, his invention really had a profound impact, like on, global trade and public health. It goes back to that idea of the value of diverse perspectives, even in very specialized fields, right? It's about being open to unexpected sources of innovation.
It's fascinating how Epstein he weaves all these different examples together from all these different fields to illustrate this point. It's like he's building a case for the power of range, like, brick by brick, and each story kind of adds another layer of understanding.
He does a really fantastic job of showcasing, how this range can benefit individuals and teams across, all sorts of disciplines. It's not just a theory, it's a very practical approach to navigating this complex world that we live in.
And speaking of navigating that complexity, you were talking about decision making earlier. Does he delve further into that in the excerpts you shared?
He does. He goes a little bit deeper into Philip Tetlock's research on expert predictions. Remember, we were talking about how those fox-like thinkers tend to be more accurate. Well, it turns out that experts often fall prey to things like confirmation bias, where they're seeking out information that only confirms what they already believe.
Almost as if they're so focused on their area of expertise that they miss like crucial information from other fields. Like their specialized knowledge becomes a blind spot.
Exactly. And this is where Tetlock's concept of what he calls active open-mindedness really comes in. It's that willingness to actively seek out and consider different viewpoints, even those that challenge our deeply held beliefs.
It sounds like a really crucial skill, especially in a world where we are just constantly bombarded with information from every direction. It's about being those critical thinkers, questioning our assumptions, and being open to, to changing our minds when presented with new evidence.
Precisely, yeah. And Tetlock's research actually showed that people who are high in science curiosity, those who are eager to learn new things and explore different ideas, they're less likely to be swayed by misinformation, right? And they're better at evaluating evidence objectively.
So intellectual curiosity is like a key ingredient in this active open-mindedness.
Yeah.
Right? It's about being open to learning from all these different sources and being willing to revise our understanding of the world based on new information.
Exactly. It's about being adaptable. It's about being flexible, and it's about constantly seeking out that new knowledge and those insights. And this is a skill that you can actually cultivate and hone over time. It's not about being born a fox or a hedgehog. It's about developing those habits of mind that lead to those, more accurate judgments and better decision making.
This is such an important takeaway, especially in today's world where, we're constantly bombarded with information. We have to make these decisions. In the face of all this complexity and uncertainty, it's making me rethink my own approach to decision making and how I evaluate information.
And that's the power of range. It challenges us to really examine our own biases, to be more open-minded, and to cultivate that intellectual humility. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to learn, to adapt, and to really embrace the unknown.
This has been an incredibly thought-provoking conversation, and it's clear that we've just scratched the surface of what Epstein explores in Range.
Yeah.
I'm eager to continue our deep dive and uncover even more insights that can help us, navigate this complex world and reach our full potential.
Absolutely. There are so many more fascinating examples and strategies to discuss.
Let's do it.
This idea of dropping your familiar tools makes me think about something else. Epstein explores the role of experience in a rapidly changing job market. He kind of challenges that traditional career advice we always hear, pick a specialty early on and stick to it.
That's interesting. It seems like that advice is everywhere, especially with so much emphasis on specialization these days. What does Epstein propose instead?
Well, he argues that a more flexible and adaptable approach is often more successful, especially in today's world, right? He talks about being A portfolio worker, someone with a diverse set of skills and experiences who's comfortable working across different roles and industries.
That makes a lot of sense given how quickly things are changing with, automation and technology disrupting so many fields.
Exactly. And he argues that early specialization can actually hinder our ability to find what he calls that ideal match quality
Hmm.
between our skills and interests and the challenges we face in our work.
So it's not just about finding a job, it's about finding work that truly aligns with our passions and our talents, which might evolve over time, right?
Right, exactly. It's about being open to new possibilities, experimenting with different paths, and recognizing that our interests and skills might change as we gain more experience. Think about someone who starts their career in finance, but later discovers a passion for teaching or writing.
Oh, those are great examples. It really highlights the importance of staying curious and open to those new opportunities rather than, feeling locked into a specific path just because that's where we started.
And this connects back to the idea of range as a strength, right? The more diverse our experiences are, the more adaptable and resilient we become, both in our careers and our lives in general. It's about being a lifelong learner and embracing that journey of discovery rather than clinging to that one fixed path.
This makes me think about, those people we were discussing earlier, those who achieve success kind of later in life. Perhaps their diverse experiences contributed to the resilience, and their
Mhm.
ability to kind of pivot when needed.
Yeah, that's a great connection. It's not always a straight line to success, right? Sometimes those detours and those unexpected turns are actually what lead us to discover our true passions and talents.
This is really shifting my perspective on career planning. It's not about having that rigid 5-year plan, but it's about being open to exploration and recognizing that our path might unfold in ways that we never expected.
Exactly. And he provides some great examples of people who've successfully navigated career transitions by leveraging those diverse skills and experiences. He talks about, for instance, a former military officer who used his leadership skills, his strategic thinking skills, to launch a successful business in a completely unrelated field.
It's amazing how transferable skills can be if we're willing to look beyond just the specific job titles or industries, that we're familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. And he also profiles a former teacher who transitioned into a career in technology using her communication and problem solving skills. So, it just shows that we all have these valuable skills and experiences that can be applied in different contexts if we're willing to be creative and adaptable.
This is giving me so much to think about in terms of my own career trajectory. It's encouraging to know that it's okay to explore different options and to, even change directions if our interests or passions shift.
Absolutely. And that's what Epstein encourages throughout the book. He challenges us to be lifelong learners, to be open to new possibilities, and to never stop growing and evolving.
Speaking of learning, I'm curious to delve deeper into this concept of desirable difficulties that you mentioned earlier. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how making learning more challenging can actually be beneficial, right?
It seems counterintuitive, right? But think of it like physical exercise. If you always lift the same weight, your muscles aren't going to grow as quickly as if you progressively increase the weight and challenge yourself. And the same principle applies to learning.
So it's about pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones and embracing those challenges to strengthen our cognitive muscles.
Exactly. He cites several studies that support this idea. For instance, one study found that students who learned Spanish vocabulary and were tested on it a month later retained like significantly more information than those who were tested, the same day.
Wow. So by spacing out those practice sessions and allowing ourselves to forget some of the information, it forces our brains to work harder to retrieve it. And that leads to stronger memories.
Precisely. It's about creating what they call a desirable difficulty. It's a challenge that forces us to engage with the material more deeply and, process it more thoroughly.
This makes me think about how technology has often made learning so much easier and more accessible, but maybe those shortcuts are actually hindering our ability to really learn and retain information in the long run.
It's a really interesting paradox. We've become so accustomed to instant gratification and easy access to information, but that doesn't necessarily translate to that, deep and lasting learning.
So it's about finding that balance, right, between leveraging the benefits of technology and recognizing the value of those desirable difficulties, that push our brains to work harder and ultimately lead to that more meaningful learning.
Exactly. And he offers some practical strategies for incorporating those those desirable difficulties into our learning. Things like spaced repetition,
Mm.
retrieval practice, and interleaving different subjects.
These are techniques that I've heard of, but I haven't always, implemented them consistently. Perhaps it's time to revisit them and see how I can incorporate those challenges into my own learning process.
It's definitely worth experimenting with. And, remember, it's not about making learning miserable. It's about finding that right level of challenge that pushes you to engage more deeply with the material and ultimately leads to that more rewarding learning experience.
I'm already starting to think about, how I can apply these ideas to learning new skills for work or even just, developing a new hobby.
That's great. Yeah. And this concept of desirable difficulties can also be applied to personal growth and navigating those challenges in life, right? It's about recognizing that setbacks and obstacles, those aren't things to be avoided, but they're actually opportunities for learning and for growth and resilience.
This is such a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of fearing those challenges, we can view them as opportunities to stretch ourselves and develop new skills.
Exactly. And that's what range is all about. It's about embracing the power of diversity, of exploration, of adaptability, and of continuous learning. It's about recognizing that our greatest asset in this rapidly changing world is not our specialized knowledge, but our ability to learn, to adapt, and to connect those dots across different domains.
This conversation has been so insightful and inspiring. I'm already starting to see how I can apply these concepts to my own life and work. I'm I'm eager to continue exploring range and see what other valuable lessons we can uncover together. What else have you discovered in these excerpts?
Oh, there's a fascinating chapter on the world of savants, individuals who possess these extraordinary abilities in specific areas, often alongside developmental differences.
Oh, I've always been intrigued by savants. Their abilities seem, almost superhuman.
They are remarkable, for sure, but Epstein challenges the common belief that they're simply born with these extraordinary talents. He suggests that their expertise is actually the result of years of intense focus and deliberate practice, often fueled by a deep fascination with a particular subject.
So instead of being, pre-wired for greatness,
Yeah,
they discover a passion and they dedicate themselves to it relentlessly.
exactly. It's about finding that element, that intersection of talent and passion, and then
Yeah.
pursuing it with just unwavering dedication.
This makes me think of the 10,000 hour rule that was popularized by Malcolm Gladwell, suggesting that mastery in any field requires, extensive focused practice.
That's a great connection. And Epstein really builds on that idea by exploring how savants, despite facing, certain challenges, they leverage their unique strengths and interests to achieve these extraordinary levels of expertise in their chosen areas.
It's a testament to the power of passion, perseverance and deliberate practice in really shaping our abilities.
Absolutely. And it challenges us to reconsider our assumptions about talent versus whole work. It's not about denying the existence of natural talent, but it's about recognizing that talent alone is not enough. It needs to be nurtured, it needs to be developed, and it needs to be channeled through deliberate practice and persistent effort.
Speaking of talent and expertise, earlier we were talking about the potential downside of specialization. Now, it can sometimes lead to what's called cognitive entrenchment. Can you remind us what that is and how it relates to this discussion?
Sure. So cognitive entrenchment is that tendency for experts to become so specialized in their thinking that they really struggle to adapt to new information or to solve problems outside of their, the narrow area of expertise.
Hmm.
So while expertise is valuable, it can become a limiting factor if we become too rigid in our thinking, right? We need to find that balance between, developing that deep knowledge in a specific area and maintaining that certain level of cognitive flexibility. Exactly, and Epstein offers some insightful strategies for mitigating this risk. One key recommendation is cultivating what he calls intellectual humility, the awareness of the limits of our own knowledge, right? And the willingness to consider alternative perspectives.
So it's about being open to new information, even if it challenges our existing beliefs, and being willing to change our minds when presented with new evidence. It's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers and that there's always more to learn.
Precisely. And another strategy is to engage in what's called deliberate unlearning, actively seeking out information that contradicts our existing beliefs and forcing ourselves to reconsider those assumptions.
It's like giving our brains a mental workout, shaking things up and creating those new connections. It reminds me of that saying, the mind like a parachute, it only works when it's open.
That's a great analogy. And he also emphasizes the importance of cross-training, exposing ourselves to a variety of disciplines and perspectives to broaden our thinking and enhance our adaptability.
It's about being those lifelong learners, always seeking out new knowledge and new experiences and constantly challenging ourselves to think outside the box. It sounds like a key ingredient in cultivating this range that Epstein advocates for.
Exactly. It's about developing a curious and flexible mind that's open to learning from a variety of sources and adapting to new challenges.
Hmm.
And it's a skill that can be developed and honed over time. It's not about being born a fox or a hedgehog. It's about developing those habits of mind that lead to more accurate judgments, better decision making, and greater adaptability in all areas of our lives.
This conversation has been so insightful and inspiring. I'm already starting to see how I can apply these concepts to my own life and work. It's clear that range offers a wealth of valuable insights and strategies for anyone looking to navigate the complexities of our modern world and reach their full potential.
I agree. It's a book that challenges our assumptions, it expands our horizons, and it inspires us to really embrace the power of range in all aspects of our lives.
This deep dive has been incredibly rewarding. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your insights with me today.
It's been my pleasure. And if this conversation has sparked your curiosity, I highly recommend diving into range yourself. There's so much more to uncover.
I'm definitely adding it to my reading list. This has been a fantastic journey. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into range.
My pleasure. Happy exploring.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this serial mastery.
So Epstein explores this idea that we can actually achieve success in multiple fields throughout our lives by applying these principles of deliberate practice and focus and dedication. He suggests that our potential is not limited to just one area of expertise.
So we're not just switching careers, we're mastering new ones.
Right.
That's a really empowering thought. What kind of examples does he give?
Well, he profiles a former professional athlete who transitioned into like a really successful business career by applying that same discipline, focus, and work ethic that he honed on the playing field to a completely different domain.
That makes sense because those skills can often transcend specific fields. What other examples stood out to you?
He also discusses a musician who became a successful entrepreneur, leveraging his creativity, problem-solving skills, and his ability to connect with people.
Yeah. These examples really highlight the power of those transferable skills and this idea that we can leverage our experiences and our expertise in new and unexpected ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's about recognizing that our skills and knowledge, those are valuable assets that we can apply across, different contexts if we're willing to be, creative and adaptable.
This makes me think about, all the different skills and experiences that I've gained throughout my life,
Right.
even those that seem unrelated to my current work. Maybe there are these hidden connections and potential applications that I haven't even considered.
That's a great insight. It's about seeing our experiences not as these isolated events, but as part of this larger tapestry, right?
Yeah.
That contributes to our unique skill set and perspective.
This conversation is inspiring me to take stock of my own portfolio, of skills and experiences and consider how I might leverage them in new and creative ways.
That's wonderful. And it really aligns with Epstein's message of embracing range as a strength, right? It's about recognizing that our diverse experiences, even those that seem completely unrelated, they can actually contribute to our success and our fulfillment in these really unexpected ways.
Now, shifting gears a bit, I'm curious to hear more about Epstein's thoughts on decision making, especially given our earlier conversation about those fox-like thinkers and cognitive flexibility.
Sure. He delves deeper into the importance of seeking out those diverse perspectives, challenging our own assumptions, and really considering a wide range of information before making decisions.
It sounds like he's advocating for this, you know, more holistic and nuanced approach to decision making rather than just relying solely on our own, limited perspective.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have these biases, right? These blind spots. And that seeking out those diverse viewpoints can help us to make more informed and well-rounded decisions.
This makes me think about, the dangers of echo chambers and confirmation bias, especially in today's world where we're, constantly bombarded with information that just reinforces our existing beliefs.
Yeah, that's a great point. And he emphasizes the importance of actively seeking out information that challenges our assumptions, even if it makes us uncomfortable.
So it's about being willing to question our own beliefs and to be open to changing our minds when we're, presented with new evidence.
Precisely. And he also highlights the value of what are called pre-mortems. It's a technique for identifying potential problems and risks before making a decision.
I've heard of premortems. It's like you imagine that the decision has already been made and it's failed, right? And
Yeah.
then you work backward to identify those factors that contributed to the failure.
Exactly. It's a really powerful way to kind of anticipate those potential problems, to develop those contingency plans, and to make more, informed and thoughtful decisions.
Yeah, it sounds like a valuable tool for anyone who's involved in decision making, whether in their personal life or the professional life.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive and considering those different perspectives to really mitigate those risks and increase those chances of success.
This conversation has been so enlightening. It's clear that Range offers valuable insights and strategies for making sound judgments in these complex and uncertain situations.
And it really reinforces this idea that a broad range of experience coupled with intellectual humility and a willingness to learn, those can be, powerful assets in navigating those, the challenges and opportunities that life inevitably throws our way.
Speaking of navigating those challenges, I'm
Yeah.
curious to hear more about Epstein's thoughts on personal growth and development. What insights has he shared in that realm?
He encourages us to be lifelong learners, constantly seeking out that new knowledge and those new experiences and always challenging ourselves to grow and to evolve. It's about embracing the journey, being open to those new possibilities and recognizing that our passions and our interests, those might change over time.
That's a powerful message. It seems like he's advocating for a more fluid and dynamic approach to life rather than, feeling like we need to have everything figured out, at a young age.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's about embracing the unknown, being open to those new experiences and trusting that our path will unfold in its own time. And it's never too late to learn, to change and to discover those, new passions and talents.
This makes me think about the pressure that so many of us feel, to have this linear career path, or a clearly defined life plan.
Yeah.
But maybe that approach is just, it's too rigid for the complexities of today's world.
I agree. And he highlights the importance of cultivating that growth mindset, right? The belief that our abilities aren't fixed, but that they can be developed through effort, dedication, and a willingness to learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, growth mindset seems so crucial, for navigating those unexpected turns in life and for embracing change and new challenges. It's about seeing those setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities for learning and growth.
Precisely. And it's a mindset that can be cultivated and nurtured through conscious effort and supportive relationships.
Speaking of supportive relationships, does Epstein talk about, the role of mentors and role models in personal development?
He does. He emphasizes the importance of developing what he calls a personal board of directors, a group of, trusted advisors who can offer guidance and support and encouragement as we navigate life's challenges and pursue our goals.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders and coaches in our corner,
Yeah.
helping us to stay on track and reach our full potential.
That's a great way to put it. And these advisors, they can come from all areas of our lives.
Hmm.
Our family, our friends, our colleagues, our mentors, and even people we admire from afar.
This is making me think about, the importance of surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us, who believe in us and who challenge us to grow. It's about cultivating that network of support that empowers us to be our best selves.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that we don't have to, go it alone. We all need that support and that guidance along the way. And seeking out those relationships can make such a significant difference in our personal and our professional journeys.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I'm starting to see how Range offers not just a framework for success, but also a guide for living a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
I agree. It's a book that challenges us to embrace our unique journey, to be open to those new experiences, and to cultivate the mindset and the skills that empower us to thrive in a world of constant change.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I'm so grateful for this conversation and for the opportunity to explore these ideas with you. It's really made me rethink my approach to learning and problem solving and even career planning.
Well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure discussing this with you. And if this has sparked your curiosity, I highly recommend checking out Range for yourself.
I'm definitely going to. I can't wait to dive into it. This has been a truly fantastic journey. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into RAIMS.
It's been my pleasure. Happy reading.